And as the first breeding season of the tetrapod across Pangean coastlines comes to a close, families can still be witnessed crawling around in confusion as to which eggs belongs to who. Well, they'll need to get their wriggle on because things are looking like they might heat up later this era.
Now, onto weather. We've currently been experiencing some wild weather since Laurussia and Gondwana collided and formed those mountain belts and highlands. It's been a regular occurrence and the climate all throughout Pangea is being affected, with the climate being highly seasonal rather than zonal. Scientists are starting to call it monsoonal.
Those of us around the equator will have felt it the most. Alternating wet and dry periods are wreaking havoc across the low latitudes of Pangea. And that's not surprising, as new evidence has uncovered that the extreme seasonal weather is actually caused by the Tethys Sea. Its cause is the Pangean geography. The pressure contrast caused by the land masses of North and South Pangea on either side of the Tethys causes the air circulation filled with moisture from the sea to flow across the equator. The low pressure across the equator is then further amplified by the heat sources provided by the mountains and highlands, and these are the main drivers that cause these so-called monsoons. Furthermore, it appears this monsoonal climate is also responsible for the slow drying happening across western equatorial Pangea, as easterly winds from the Tethys are being diverted north and south. The worst is yet to come, however, as scientists predict that the monsoon will only become more severe. As it strengthens, the drying in the west will start moving eastward across the equator. Pangea is slowly moving northwards, and the monsoon will reach its maximum in an estimated 50 million years, when the continent is almost symmetrical in terms of landmass around the equator. Scientists are in fact starting to refer to it as a mega monsoon because of its intensity, and predictions estimate it may reach as far as the mid-latitudes to as far south as the Australian region in Gondwana.
We'll keep you updated on this important news as new research unfolds. It's the Paleozoic era, and we're in the late Permian. But for now, I'll hand it over to our resident weather expert, Liam Dunn, for more general climate news. Liam, how's it looking?
Moving across Pangea, we see relatively similar conditions all around. In Shanghai now, and most of China is warm, dry and arid to semi-arid, which is consistent with the rest of the continent. These conditions will allow the formation of different minerals in the soils. Gypsosols, soils rich with gypsum accumulation, are formed in dry and arid conditions and will be observed in the soils for this early Permian era. Though dry, however, the warmer weather will change the prominent vegetation of the area. Later in the Permian, we are expecting an increase in the humidity of Pangea, with wetter conditions predicted. These wetter conditions will bring the much needed rainfall into the area, so it will be an ideal time to learn how to swim. The wetter conditions will create a different soil to the dry soil. Instead, we will see the presence of vertisols. These soils are clayey with little organic matter and are formed under conditions where there are distinct wet and dry periods. To the coast and Los Angeles now. The local area in this early Permian time period, much like Shanghai, is experiencing dry and semi-arid conditions with little precipitation. Because of this, there is a lack in diverse flora, which has led to two dominant plant species, each favouring arid conditions. These plants will eventually become fossils and give an indication of the climate at this time. These dry and arid conditions are expected to linger for roughly 10 to 20 million years, so don't expect your gardenias to grow anytime soon. Moving to the late Permian now, and the predictions are less accurate for this region due to a lack of data. However, there is a general prediction that the area will most likely become more wet and humid. Okay, so moving on to Rio, and we are seeing similar conditions in the early Permian to that of the rest of Pangea. Drier and more arid conditions are being experienced in the area. Records of this will be shown in the marine evaporative records, where salts and minerals are deposited from evaporation of water. These deposits are quite extensive in the early Permian and are not predicted to change too much.
Thanks for that, Liam. Now for some breaking news. New research has just emerged. It seems that Laurasia and Gondwana could break apart at any time now, splitting Pangea in two. This is due to a process called continental rifting, but importantly, what does this mean for us? Without the geography of Pangea, this disrupts the main mega-monsoonal forcing factor. It's expected to continue at a fairly weakened strength in Gondwana, but nowhere nearly as strong as it is now. Rising sea levels and less extreme temperatures can be expected, but the main thing to expect is a return to zonal circulation from the Pangean mega-monsoonal climate. We'll cut to our on-site reporter, Zoak, who has the latest. To everyone watching, my apologies for the technical difficulties, but there seems to be some lag between the studio and our field reporter.
Well, Kevin, we're now in the Mesozoic era, the Jurassic period, and the epoch is Tertiary. And as you said, through the turmoil of the previous Triassic period, Pangea is no more. Let's check back on how our cities are doing. First, let's go east. Shanghai should anticipate more precipitation than earlier in the Jurassic. Cold depositions across this region indicate that the area experienced considerably wet climates in the recent period. This region is now considered temperate as opposed to a tropical, ever-wet region in the previous era. I'm now on the edge of the Colorado Plateau, which is once again a desert with dry and arid conditions after that short stint as a tropical region during the Triassic period. Why am I here? Newly formed mid-ocean ridges west of North America and the Pacific have displaced waters, creating shallow warm water seas here and in Europe. Thus, Los Angeles is now way over there behind me underneath the sea. The western sections of the northwest shifting Laurasian continent, which were previously exposed, are currently all underneath the ocean. The dry period is now occurring as warm waters from the Tethys Ocean circulate through the newly formed strait into the western hemisphere. The changes in the climate can be found in sediments and rock depositions, like Liam mentioned earlier to you, Kevin. Here particularly, it's Aeolian sandstone depositions, which indicate the drier periods. The rifting between Laurasia and Gondwana has also disrupted the monsoon. The northward moving Laurasian continent will now be drier in the west, as we'll be experiencing lower temperatures, which of course leads to less evaporation. And this trend has been ongoing since the late Triassic. This cooling will show up in records across Laurasia in the form of ammonite fauna from the boreal realm. Down south here in Rio now, and this inland region remains an arid and dry area. The mega monsoon of Pangea never really affected this landlocked city, and the breakdown of the monsoon isn't having much of an impact either as the city continues on with its life. Overall, Laurasian cities should now experience an annual seasonal range of around 40 degrees, and Gondwanan cities should expect an annual seasonal range of about 45 degrees as seismic shifts occur in both the tectonics and the climate of our world. Now, onto our 100 million year forecast. Everything looks much more pleasant as Shanghai should be experiencing mild days with the dominance of a temperate climate. Welcome back, Los Angeles, as you'll now be experiencing similar conditions as well, better than being underwater, I say. Expect humidity and rain nearly year-round in Rio as you move into a tropical climate, and a shout out to everyone who now have oceanfront properties. The opening up of the Atlantic Ocean should be very good for the local property market down there. Now back to you in the studio, Kevin.
Thank you very much, Zoak. That's the way it is today in the Jurassic era. Thanks for your company, and we'll have updates later tonight. But for now, from the team, have a good day.